Hey everyone, Teacher Chang here today, and we're going to talk about point-slope form. So our goal is to write out that linear equation in this new form, the point-slope form. Now most equations are typically written in that slope-intercept form. So if we have a linear equation, meaning that it's going to create a straight line if we were to graph it, it's usually written in that slope-intercept form, which means you have to have that slope, which is our m value, and we have to have the y-intercept, which is this b value. So that's typically how we write out our linear equations, usually in that slope-intercept form. Okay, so we could also write out our linear equations in point-slope form. Now, point-slope form basically means that we need to have a point and we have to have a slope. So if we're given a point and we're given a slope, we can go ahead and write out our equation in this point-slope form. So the point-slope form is this right here in this yellow box. We have y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Well, that m value is once again still our slope. But what we have now is a point. And a point is going to be our x1 and our y1. And we're going to replace these values, the x1 and the y1, with some type of a number given our point. So let's take a look at an example. So our first example is where we have a point and we have a slope. And when they give us a point and they give us a slope, we can quickly, right away, write out our equation. So here we have a point, which is going to represent our x1 and our y1. And then we have our slope, m is equal to -4. Now, the format, once again, I'll write it out, is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So all we got to do is copy this. So I'm just going to copy it down, but I'm not going to put in my y1, my m, or my x1 yet. I'm just going to leave it blank. I'm just going to write out the format. This is the format that we want. And all we got to do is substitute. We place in what we know. So it says y minus y1. Well, y1 is 3. Is equal to m. Well, what is m? M is -4. And then we have our x minus x1. Well, x1 is -8, so minus a negative changes it to a plus. So here is our point-slope form. That's it. That's all you got to do. As long as you have a point, you have a slope, all you got to do is substitute it into those different places. So we have to substitute it into our x1, our y1, and our m. Now let's say that we want to go ahead and convert this into slope-intercept form. Since most of our equations are written in slope-intercept form, if we want to convert that, well, all we got to do is just a little bit of math here. So I'm going to take this -4, and I'm just going to distribute it over to our x plus 8. So that's going to give us -4x minus 32. We're going to bring down that y minus 3. Now, slope-intercept form means we need to get y by itself. So all I got to do is subtract, take that -3 and add 3 on both sides. So I'm going to add 3 on both sides here. The 3's on the left will cancel each other out, and that's going to give us our new equation. Y is equal to -4x, and -32 plus 3 is going to give us -29. So this right here is our slope-intercept form. So we have two forms that we can write out our linear functions or our linear equations. The first one that we have here is our point-slope form. And all we got to do is take a point, take the slope, and substitute it in. And the other version is our slope-intercept form. And if we have our slope-intercept, that means we now know what is the slope, and we know what is the y-intercept. Okay, so let's take a look at another one here. Another one very similar. Here we're given a point and we're given a slope. So that point that they gave us is 5, -2. That's going to be our x1 and our y1. And the slope that they gave us is -1/2. So all we're going to do is substitute that into our point-slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And again, all you got to do is substitute. So I'm going to leave some blanks here. I'm going to put in the essential items, and we're just going to substitute what they gave us. So y minus y1. Well, y1 is -2, so I'll substitute that. Minus and negative means plus. And then we have our slope. The slope is -1/2. And it says x minus x1, and x1 is 5. And that's all you need to do. There's our point-slope form. Okay, and again, if you want to go ahead and convert it into slope-intercept form, all you got to do is solve. We distribute. So if I want it into slope-intercept form, I'm going to distribute. So that's going to give us negative 1/2 x, and negative 1/2 times negative 5 is just positive 5 over 2. Okay, we'll bring down that y plus 2. Now we want to get y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. Now 2 is the same thing as 4 over 2, because 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the reason why I did that is because I wanted a common denominator, and that way I could go ahead and subtract my fractions. So now I'm left with y is equal to negative 1/2 x, and 5 over 2 minus 4 over 2, well, that's just 1 over 2, so minus 1, plus 1 over 2. Okay, and there is your slope-intercept form. Okay, so again, we have our point-slope form, and we have our slope-intercept form. Okay, all right, let's take a look at this next one. This next one is slightly different. So if we have, what we have here are 2 points. So if we have 2 points, we need to figure out, well, what is the slope? Well, what's the formula to solve for a slope? Well, the formula for a slope is rise over run, which means we're going to do our y. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is the formula to calculate a slope. Well, the 1s and the 2s are going to tell us our ordered pairs. So our first ordered pair is going to be our 1, so our x1 and our y1. Our second order pair will be our 2, so x2 and our y2. So all we got to do is to substitute everything in, and then we have our slope. So if I go ahead and substitute everything in, I'm just going to put in the essentials here. We have our y2 minus y1. Well, y2 is negative 1, y1 is 3. And then we have our x2 minus x1. So I'm just going to substitute those in. So x2 is 5 minus x1, which is negative 6. Well, minus a negative is a positive. So that means 5 plus 6. And all we got to do is the math. So negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. And 5 plus 6 is going to give us 11. Now, we would simplify this if possible, but we can't. So we now know that our slope, m, is equal to negative 4 over 11. So there's our slope. So now we're just going to write out our point-slope form. So our point-slope form, again, is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. We'll throw in our essentials. So y minus something is equal to something times x minus something. And, well, in order to do this, you need to pick a point. Now, typically, we'll choose the first point that we have. So I'm going to use this one as my x1 and my y1, but technically, you could use any point. You could have done the 5, negative 1 as opposed to the negative 3, 6, or negative 6, 3. So I'm going to go ahead and use this negative 6, 3. So here, my y1, so y minus y1. Well, y1 is 3 in this case. The slope is negative 4 over 11. And our x minus x1, x1 is negative 6, so that means plus 6. And this is your point-slope form. Now again, I could have replaced the x1 and the y1 with that 5 and that negative 1, and I'd get a different version of our point-slope form, but the two are going to be the same. So if I converted them into slope-intercept form, they would both have the same slope-intercept form. All right, let's try one more, except this time they gave us an equation in slope-intercept form, and what we want to do is we want to convert this into point-slope form. So what we need is a point and a slope. Well, slope-intercept form, well, I have that slope. That slope is negative 2 over 3. But I need a point, and that point is actually this negative 4. How is negative 4 a point? Well, remember, this is a y-intercept. And a y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So that point is really 0, negative 4. Because again, x has to equal to 0. So that's my x1, and my y1 is that negative 4. So all we got to do is substitute that into our point-slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Throw in the essentials. and we'll just go ahead and plug everything in. So y1 in this particular case is going to be a -4, so y minus -4 means +4. Our slope, we said, is -2/3. And our x1 is going to be 0. Now, I am going to leave it like that. I'm not going to go ahead and do -2/3 x. Instead, I'm going to leave it like this because that's the format of a point slope form. So I need to be able to see my point, which is that 0 and that 4, and I need to be able to see my slope, which is -2/3. So that's how you go ahead and write out your linear equations in point slope form. I hope this helped out. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe. All right, good luck, enjoy, and have fun.